All right. Hi, guys. So it's been a while since we've joined you, obviously. I moved to Austin, in case you hadn't heard. Back at the end of March, I moved to Austin. And so Elsa and I have been just taking some time to get together and figure out how we're going to continue, because we are continuing these conversations and the dialogue that we have been having. Now we have the opportunity to have it on a much larger scale because of the geographic location that we're both in. But we're really excited to continue to do this work, with you, to be in partnership with you as we continue in this movement work. We know that it's hard, and it's been hard recently, and we're going to talk about that a little bit this evening. But we're glad that you decided to join us tonight, and we just wanted you to know that we're not going anywhere. We are still here.
Yeah, and so in addition to Skyrim moving, COVID happened, and that was has been a huge game changer, I think, for everybody worldwide. Personally, work for me amps up during times of crisis. I do a lot of secondary response work, and so we really needed to just take a second and catch our breath. We had done the photo exhibit in February at the Acadiana Center for the Arts, and it was, we were really excited about how successful it was and how much people really seemed to embrace it. And we also closed out a really large national contract over the last couple months. And I think we just needed a second to get our feet under us. So with all of that happening, though, you know, a lot's been happening from a race, I hesitate to even say racial reconciliation standpoint, right? But just a racial standpoint on a national level. Ahmaud Arbery, the Amy Cooper incident at Central Park, and then of course George Floyd, Minnesota. And so we decided that we couldn't really wait any longer, that the time had come for us to sort of create a space. So we're here tonight for you. A lot of you have reached out to us, either personally or through conversation starters, and I know that for me, I'm really honored when people feel like they can get maybe some direction or some focus from us.
Yes. We know it might have been a little rough these past few days, and we definitely wanted to take the opportunity to do what we do best and hold space and have a dialogue and a conversation. And so this is what we're doing right now.
Yeah. So Skyra and I talked, and what we wanted to just kind of begin with was just our own personal reactions to what's been going on in the last couple of days, particularly, but over the last month or so. Skyra, do you want to begin?
Yes. So I'm gonna have this. I want to lead with this. For me, over the past maybe year and a half, I've made it a personal thing of mine, for my own mental health, for my own sanity. Anytime I'm out of another Black person being murdered, I don't watch them anymore. I can't. It's like re-traumatizing for me. I have a son who is 12 years old, and my brother drives across the country. He owns his own logistics business. And so watching those videos, reliving them over and over again, all I see is their faces on top of whoever's face it is in the video. So for me personally, I've stopped watching them, but I have not stopped following what's going on. I'm an avid, I guess maybe lurker on Twitter, because Twitter usually has a lot of live, up-to-date news, more so than Facebook. Not that Facebook doesn't get it, but Twitter is more real-time things, and you can follow hashtags and see things happening in real time. So I definitely follow and stay abreast of what's going on there. And I want to be very, very transparent with you all about where I am personally with everything. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone in these feelings, but I kind of have like a split uh, reaction and emotion to everything that's happening. On the one hand, right, our community, when I say our, I mean Black communities, have been under siege um, since slavery, since we landed here in 1619. And you know, for me, like this past 4 days has been kind of a new awakening for me, because as I continue to go through this process, as I continue on my own journey of awakening, kind of what we call woke, right? For me, it's a continuum. I started in a place and now I continue to go along that continuum. But like I can feel the rage and the anger and the overwhelming hopelessness almost. It's a constant thing, even when it's not right in front of me. As I go through my day, it's sitting in the back of my mind. And so for the rage in me is fueled by what I'm seeing, and how I'm communities all across the country responding and reacting to what's happening. And on the one hand, I'm like, we've been under siege for so long. Maybe it's time returned a little bit, and that's kind of where my emotions are sometimes. But on the other side, I'm like, but what else can I be doing? What productive thing can I be engaged in and involved in to continue to move the conversation of breaking down white supremacy and systemic racism and all the things that lead to what's happening right now? Like, how did we get here? And how do we break the things that have led us to this place? And how do I play a role in that? I'm of two minds in that aspect. And particularly for me as a Black woman living in this country, my mental health has become extremely important to me over the past few months. And so I have to figure out a way to balance all of that out, the rage and the sadness and the anger and the trauma, with understanding that I live and move and breathe in the space of racial reconciliation and conversation and dialogue. And how do I continue to move through my own personal emotions and also help the people that I've committed to helping move through theirs as well? So that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. There's a combination of rage, and then there's a combination of what else can I be doing? So, Elsa.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been unique because we've been in our homes and somewhat unable to get distracted. There's been this unique focus and the timing of one thing after another while we've been sort of homebound. I think I can't even really get back to the place of what I felt like a month ago, but I can speak to George Floyd and moving forward. It was heartbreaking, rage. I think Skyra used the word rage, and I have to definitely echo that. I'm hopeful that these extreme tragedies perhaps won't be in vain this time, that maybe because we have this focus, we'll be able to, people who may have not, whites who have not been able to wrap their heads around the truth of this, will be able to see it for themselves. Maybe there's some credibility there that unfortunately needed to happen in that way. People who are getting out and supporting in such direct ways. I feel watchful. What are the reactions going on? I'm often frustrated and disappointed by people and their true thoughts that they feel empowered to share on social media. But then I'm also surprised at the openness of others and new people who are choosing to engage. I think it's vitally important that that the way that people are responding to pain, that all kinds of reactions that are not denial, but particularly from people of color, are accepted, and it's important to try to understand it and try to hold space as much as possible. So I feel like I was very ineloquent, but I also feel like it's sort of a very ineloquent time.
Yeah. Where emotions are running high, but sometimes that's the most authentic we can be, is in those moments.
Yeah.
And figuring out how to allow people the space to experience the pain, and also hold space, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's been really hard. Like, how do I talk about this with my brother, the young Black man who I worry about when he's on the road all the time? And then at some point, how do I start having the conversation with my son? Two, how do I talk to my friends who are white, are white presenting? Like, it's just so much. It can be so overwhelming at times that sometimes you just need to sit in it by yourself and kind of sift through all of it. But sometimes you really just need someone to sit in it with you, who gets it and shares in it, and can take some of the burden, even if just a little bit, for relief.
And show grace when perhaps people are acting out of character.
Yes. I think I'm going to speak for me. I'm not going to speak for all Black people. But the showing grace to people who are not Black or not people of color can be very difficult, particularly in times like this. When it keeps happening over and over and over, and you have to keep reliving the trauma, and you have to keep re-explaining, and it's like a scab that just keeps getting reopened over and over and over again, and people keep telling you, like, just trust the system, just trust the Band-Aid. And I'm like, the Band-Aid has never worked, so why would you ask me to trust it? So it can just be very difficult to find a space for grace sometimes in the middle of all the rage and the anger and the pain.
Yeah. So, a lot of people have said, I think particularly white people have said, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I'm getting conflicting messaging. I don't say anything and it looks like I'm silent. I say things and I am afraid to say the wrong thing. How can I take action other than just being like heartbroken? And so we also wanted to spend a little bit of time tonight, maybe talking about, what do you do on an individual level? So Skyra, I don't know if you want to
go first.
Yeah.
So I only picked, I think, 3 things for Black people and other people of color, and obviously Indigenous peoples as well, that really stick out as things for me that feel foundational. The first thing, and I spoke about this a little bit at the beginning, is outside of everything else, you need to ensure that your mental health is okay. Take time to speak to a therapist if you have one, and if you don't, if you journal, if you pray, if you talk to friends, whatever that cathartic space is for you, where you need to get to a place where you can emotionally be okay. That is the number one thing that I think we should be thinking about for ourselves first, and then for others. Because if you are not okay, if your mental health situation, if your emotional state is not okay, if it's broken and it's fragmented, then there's no way you can help and support and move through this. It'll start to be hard to wake up and to see things. And so I just really wanted to focus on like your emotional health. I went to a conference last year, and there was a woman, her name was Jacova Williams, I believe. And she has a PhD in mathematics and economics. She's very smart Black woman. But she talked a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder in the Black community and how it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. Now, her specific topic was about voting, but I want to remind you guys that as we continue to see these murders, as these videos keep coming out, as you read Facebook posts, as you talk to your family members, as you follow Twitter stories, it's literally like reliving a trauma in a combat zone. It is post-traumatic stress disorder. And we need to understand that's generations of this happening to us. So just reinforcing that you need to take care of your mental health first. And whatever that looks like for you, make sure that you make that a priority in your life. That's the first thing. The second thing is center your identity. Center who you are and what you believe and why you believe it and why it's important to you. Whether that's your faith, whether that's your family, whether that's your work, whether that is your friends, whether that is enjoying the outdoors or going for a walk, whatever that centered place is for you and your identity where you find peace, center yourself in that. Because outside of your mental health, that is going to be the second most important thing that you can do yourself in times like this when these things happen. And then the third thing that I would suggest is find your lane. Because I think a lot of times we get caught up in like, well, I'm not doing enough because I'm not out there with the protesters, or she's selling out because they work in government, or maybe the narratives that we hear day in and day out. I just want to remind you, find your lane. Everyone has a place and in this movement, right? You can be an educator, you can do work like we do with conversation starters, right? You can organize. If organizing is your lane, then you organize. If funding the movement is your lane, if what you feel like you can do in the capacity you have to give is funding the movement, fund the movement. If you want to, what I call infiltrate, go into businesses and organizations and you help them figure out racial equity from within and you're trying to dismantle the system from within, then you do that. Or if you want to create, and I mean, not just creating like a business, but building something, whether it's in an institution or a grassroots effort or something that you care deeply about that's in this space, then you create that for you. But find your lane and own it, and live in that lane and recognize that you have supporters in all the other lanes. So you don't have to do it all. We don't have to continue to take on all of the burdens. There's enough of the work to go around and we can share it. So if we all owned our lane and stayed in it, I think that we can see much more progress quicker, and we'd be willing and able to give more grace to other people who are sharing in this experience with us. And the last thing I want to say, Russ, is not really a point, but something that I just want to remind people is give yourself permission to not be okay. Give yourself permission to not be okay. There are some days where you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, you know what, I can get through this day, I can do this. And then there are going to be other days where you're not okay. And both of those are okay. But don't stay in the not okay place, but give yourself permission to not be okay.
Yeah. So I think the things that I'm going to recommend to people who are not of color are going to look a little different than that. I think first and foremost, you have to listen to people of color. That you don't get to be the arbiters of feelings, reactions, actions. They may not make sense to you, and that is okay. They don't have to make sense to you. Things may hurt your feelings that you read, and take a beat. You know, don't react. Figure out why it hurt your feelings, and consider that it might be you. I mean, something that is triggered for you may be because something resonates in you that you might be doing, you know? So rather than say, I don't understand why so and so said this, I don't know why they're doing this, you don't have to understand it right away. And it doesn't give you permission to say that it's the wrong thing to feel, the wrong way to act, the wrong way to react to a situation. And I think that that brings me into like, you need to seek to understand rioting and looting particularly. Um, our statistician Danielle shared with me today this brilliant video that Trevor Noah did. And you know, he has such a unique perspective being South African, particularly in the areas of rioting and looting. And he talked about how there's this unspoken contract that's signed by people in society of what acceptable behavior is, right? But that contract has been broken for so long and by so many white people that why should we expect other people to hold up their end of the bargain of acceptable behavior? Like, why are we expecting anything else? You know? So I think that, you know, first of all, I recommend you watch that because it really just, it was beautifully expressed. But I think, you know, you don't get to decide what's a right reaction and a wrong reaction. Take a minute, figure out why it pisses you off or it hurts your feelings, and consider the fact that it might be because it's they're talking to you, you know? The second thing is that this is a long road, and Skyra always says this, and it's just such a relief to hear, is that it's not going to be fixed in our lifetimes. You know, just like, this is a terrible analogy, but like, you know, you don't lose weight overnight because you don't get fat overnight, right? We're not going to undo racism after hundreds and hundreds of years of establishing it and intertwining it in our social constructs, in our systems, in our industries. So understand that this is the work back from that. Won't happen in your lifetime, but you need to participate. And it's not going to be just attending a protest. Now, that might be an amazing entry point. Maybe going to a protest and expressing yourself that way engages you, but that can't be the one and only way that you are working toward dismantling racism. It also can't be, oh, well, what I'm gonna do is teach my kids to do better, because that's amazing and important, but you're not done, right? Like, I don't care who you are, you're not done. You need to check yourself, because you can't pass on better behavior. You can't raise better white people if you're not continuing to do the work for yourself. No one's exempt. Read, you know, check in with organizations like Conversation Starters. I mean, obviously we hope it's us, but I also don't really care, you know, if it's some other platform, somebody else speaks to you and you hear it in a different way, but it needs to be self-education. Join the White Allies group, which we'll talk about in just a second. Attend events. Don't ask people of color what you should be doing, right? That's not their job. It's your job to either find out from someone else, from an organization like Conversation Starters, from a group like White Allies, from another white person, from the internet, from a book. But do ask people of color how they are. You know, don't ask them to hold space for you, you hold space for them. Don't tell them what an ally you are. Know if you're an ally by the work you've been doing and the work that you continue to do. And, you know, Skyra and I just talked about this morning, that I hate that ally is a noun, because it's not a noun. It's not an arrival point. You never arrive at it. It's a verb. It's something that you live. It's something you mess up. You don't do well. You try and try again, better the next day. What's the quote, Skyra? The Samuel Beckett quote? Try again, fail,
Feel better.
fail better. Yeah. You know, and then long term, check for things like, how do you racially integrate your organizations, your businesses, your churches, your social groups with people of color at the leadership position, at the leadership level? It isn't enough to say, oh, my workplace has Black people who work there. Congratulations, that's great. What's the leadership look like? What does the board of directors look like? You know, what does your church look like? What does your church leadership look like? What do your social organizations look like at the top level, the decision-making level? Call white people out on their nonsense. Okay, call them out on their racist behavior. It's going to cost you, and I'm sorry, it sucks, you know, but if you truly want to do the work, it means a no tolerance zone. It's not, oh, come on now. It's a, no, I'm sorry, I will not tolerate that word. I will not tolerate that behavior. And I mean, it can be done in a way where you're opening up a conversation. Some things for me don't deserve a conversation. But some things that may feel a little more subtle, I wonder what made you say that? You know, open that conversation up. And then I think that the last thing is that for me tonight is there's no such thing as post-racial. There's no such thing as, oh, I don't see color, or I lived all over the world, so I'm not racist. Nope. We need to imagine the world that we want to live in, and then we need to build that world, because that's how we got here. Some people, you know, came up with this world system, and we're living in it. You want it to be different? Let's think up something new and build it. So those are my thoughts for non-people of color tonight. You ask what we can be doing. Those are some things that we can be doing, and that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, I like listening to you and reflecting on a lot of the things that I've experienced. Like one of the things, I know you mentioned ally, it's not a noun, it's a verb. One of the things that I want to say is that be conscious of the fact that you call yourself in, right? Your Black or Indigenous or people of color friends who see you do the work, the real work of dismantling your own internal and external racism, they call you an ally. And just because you get it from someone doesn't mean you get it from everyone in that race. So it is a constant thing that you are constantly doing, and you are constantly refining as a person. As you continue to travel on this journey. I was talking to one of my friends earlier today, and we were talking about the continuum of wokeness. And we're all on it. I'm on it. I still have so far to move, and I've already come so far just in the past 3 years. And 3 years before that, like I see Facebook memories, man, will not let you be great. It reminds you every day of how much you have either grown or not grown over the years. And I'll tell you what, Facebook memories definitely reminds me of how much I have come along this journey. So just continue to know that we're all on a journey. We're all somewhere on the continuum, but the continuum is infinite. You can continue to travel along, and you can continue to be better, a better ally, a better educator, a better organizer, whatever it is that you are doing. There's so much we can learn and grow from at all levels.
And, you know, I think about like when you do a great thing, when you do a good thing, it's not necessary to go back to a person of color and say, oh, I did this thing, right? Like, I know you're excited. I know you're like, oh my God, I did this thing. It was scary. It was weird for me. And I want, like, some kind of, not reward, but some kind of validation. But find a white person and tell them how proud of yourself you are, because you're asking for labor, right? You're asking for more. And I think it's really a retraining, and cut yourself some slack. You're going to make mistakes, right? It's a rethinking. It's a unbrainwashing.
And give yourself permission to get it wrong. Like, I know that there's a lot of inherent fear, particularly from white people or people who present as white, like, I don't know what to say, or I'm going to say the wrong thing. We know that. We know that as people of color. We already know that. So I want you to get over that hump there and know that we know you're going to get it wrong. But being willing to re-examine and fail better is the difference maker. So know that you're going to get it wrong going in. Just go in with the mindset knowing that you're going to get it wrong. But, like, we want you on the journey with us.
So I know it's much later than we thought it was going to be. Sorry about the technical difficulties. This is going to be new territory for us, but I promise we're going to get it right, and it'll be smoother the next time. But is there anything from those of you who are on the call live right now, anything anybody wants to share, or thoughts they want to contribute, or questions that they have? You will have to unmute yourself.
Or you can put your question in the chat box if you'd like.
Okay. So Skyra, do you want to talk a little bit about next steps moving forward?
So I know that a lot of you all are wondering, like, what do we do now? How do we move forward? We have a group for Black and Indigenous people of color called Black Unfiltered. And I want you to know that we will be continuing that. And we will be meeting, I'm hoping, on this Thursday evening. And the idea is not to have an agenda, but to allow Black and Indigenous people space to share their thoughts and feelings and emotion about what's going on. So one of the next steps is ensuring that we do continue our affinity group and continue to move those forward and allow for the space for the people who are part of those to continue to grow and manifest what it needs to be. So if you are a person of color or an Indigenous person and you have not joined it, we do have a Black Unfiltered private group. Just go ahead and request and I'll add you to that, and then you'll be able to join the meeting we're going to have later this week on Thursday evening. So that's one of the ways.
So we also have the White Ally group, and we will be meeting on Friday evening. I'll be making a Facebook event for that. There's also a private group. In the past, I required that people attend a meeting in person before they were admitted into the group, so that there was some buy-in before you were able to just be able to comment and read and lurk, for lack of a better word. I wanted to make sure that, like, you were in it to do the work, right? And so up until now, we have not admitted people unless they had attended a meeting, but we're going to actually put a moratorium on that for a while. And because I think that if there just needs to be a space and that's the entry point, then that's okay. Things are very different right now. And so if you are a non-person of color and you would like to join the White Ally Facebook group that's closed, you can search for it. I'll put up a link later this evening with this recording, and go ahead and join. And then our meeting will be on Friday, and I'll make a Facebook event about that.
One of the next things, I know at the beginning of this year, we launched our 20 in 20 challenge. So 20 things that you can do in 2020 not to end racism, but to continue to move along your journey towards, as we move towards racial reconciliation. So what we're going to be doing is sending out a newsletter to let you all know how you can continue along in that process. Some of us are still quarantining, and maybe some events that were going to happen may either be moved or may not be happening this year. So giving you an opportunity to still continue to go on and go along that journey. So we will be sending out communications and information on how you can continue your 20 and 20 challenge and what the end of the year.
Don't forget to mute yourself.
All right, Raymond.
Yes. Also, Skyra and I will be doing a lot of digital content over the course of the next, for the foreseeable future. Some things will be in person, but we are going to definitely be developing our digital content. So please keep a lookout for that. Some of that is due to COVID and making sure that we're following proper health protocol, but also, you know, we're expanding geographically and want to make sure that we can engage as many people in different areas as possible. We're speaking with several people who live in other cities who would be interested in creating affiliate groups. So we're really excited about that and want to do that slowly and thoughtfully and carefully. But you will see more digital content coming out because of that.
Can you talk about the book?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be you. You do it.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I know at the beginning of the year we had talked about doing a book read of Americana. So what we're going to be doing is, obviously we want to continue along that path because we have a lot of digital technology, as we figured out this evening, where we can stay connected and continue to have the conversations around these issues of inequity and racial reconciliation and Black artists and Black authors in every different arena in which this movement work touches. And so we are going to resume that in August. What was it? The book meetup. But you have between June 1st and July 31st to finish reading the book. If you started, I started. Giving you 2 months to do that, but also in partnership with the Lafayette Public Library, launched Imagine Summer Reading Challenge. We're urging you to register. We're going to post the link and send it out in a newsletter for you all to register, but it's a challenge to read 10 minutes a day and you get to log it. And so hopefully over the course of the 2 months, which is how long that challenge is running through the library, you'll be able to finish the book and engage in the dialogue with this in the beginning of August. Did I miss anything else?
Also, we want to make people aware that on July 7th is Blackout Day. It's a call for people of color to not spend any money for a full day in order to, you know, gain attention and some resolution to police brutality. And it was launched in 2015, but it's gotten exceptional attention this year. And so we'll make sure that you have links to it. There's some local links and then some national groups you can join. There are ways to hashtag yourself appropriately and tag yourself as part of it. So we'll be sending out links to learn more about that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I know we're close on. In case any of you all have questions, please let us know. But I want to say something to people of color who are joining us this evening who will rewatch this live. I just want you to know that I see you, you matter, your lives matter, and I stand with you in this time and all the time to come, because this work is hard, this work is long, and we have been journeying through the emotional trauma of white supremacy and racism
What kind of headphones you need, Taylor?
been passed on to us from generation to generation. And I know it's not easy all the time. It might not ever be easy. But I just want you to know that you're not alone, that we are here in it with you. And our job is to help us move through it. And whether that's through an affinity group where you just want to share an experience and build something with people who look and understand and know what you do, or whether you want to engage in a conversation or a dialogue or participate in our digital content, whatever that may be. I just don't want you to feel like you're alone in everything that's happening. One of my, I shouldn't say my favorite quotes, but one of the quotes I think of a lot is by James Baldwin. And he says that to be Black and conscious in this country is to be in a rage all the time. All the time. And so as your sister, I understand what that's like. And so I just wanted you to know that you matter.
Thanks, Skyra. And, you know, to you white presenting folks out there, we can do better. We have the tools to do better. It doesn't make you an intrinsically bad person, but there's work to be done. And when you choose not to do the work, that's what moves you toward being an intrinsically bad person. When you choose not to stand up, when you choose not to call out your neighbor, when you choose not to do anything to create some resolution around racial inequity, disparity, things of that nature, that's on you. It hasn't been on you until the day that you realize what's going on. But the day that you realize what's going on and you choose not to do anything different, that's on you. So we're here to create tools for you to do better, ways for you to engage, ways for you to support your friends and family and coworkers who are people of color, who we have benefited from for so long. And we would love to continue having conversations and doing the work together, because that's really how it's going to happen. So those of you going out tomorrow, if you're in Lafayette, stay safe, be thoughtful, and I'll be out there, as I know some of you guys will be. And just remember that that's not the end of the journey. That's just the beginning. So thank you so much for taking your time out this evening, getting through all of the technological hurdles that we had. You know, over and over and over again, I think it's been several years now, joining us and being engaged with conversation starters. We can't do this work by ourselves.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful rest of the weekend.